How's it going, guys? Steve, Interglobal Comics here. It's been a while. I'm back from the dead. I haven't made a market report video in a while, so there was a recent Heritage all foreign comic auction that just finished up, and I figured I'd go over some of the results. Um, I just haven't really been making any videos. I just haven't really had any time to kind of focus on the market, keep an eye on things. I'm still buying and selling here and there, but not really nearly as much as I was, a few years ago. Right now, I'm actually kind of trying to downsize my collection more to just the stuff that I really care about. I kind of feel like during the COVID comic boom, I just pretty much went crazy buying as many keys as humanly possible, and just stacking books I really didn't even care about. So I'm gonna go through those and try and trade some towards books that mean a little more to me, or books I really want in the collection, and also just take up less space in my house. But yeah, and besides that, I've just been working, surfing, traveling. I've been able to go actually, boots on the ground, go look for foreign comics in a few different places, and really have had zero luck at all. Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, El Salvador. Those are the last few places I went in the last few months, and didn't even, all the comic book shops are just modern, modern stuff. Most of it in English. Not what I'm looking for. So it really does seem like buying online is really the only viable place, unless you're like pretty deeply rooted in these communities. But I will be going back to Puerto Rico here in about a month, and then back to El Salvador in a couple months. So we'll see, because I know there's gold sitting in somewhere in those countries, especially like El Salvador, where there's not a big comic book collecting culture. But they were getting La Prensa, the Navarro. They were getting all those books. The Grecos, the Macs, all that stuff was going through El Salvador and all the Spanish speaking countries. So they're there. They're sitting in someone's house under a couch somewhere. Who knows? A wedding, Mexican Spider-Man wedding issue, just sitting in somebody's pile of magazines. But it's just the hard part is finding who has it and who's willing to let it go. But all right, let's get going here. Heritage auction just finished up last week, so we're going to go through some of the results. Overall, I was pretty unimpressed with the results. I guess it's kind of been controversial. I thought it was kind of everyone would feel the same way. The majority of the books, just the general books, went way lower than I've seen in past auctions. Regardless if it's summer, winter, fall, whatever. I feel like those books, some of those books sold really cheap. But then there was also some big hitters too. Some big ones. Not really stuff I collect, but looked like the Golden Age Brazilian stuff really took off. Huge sales on a couple of those books. So I guess you just got to take the good with the bad. People are starting to realize what's more rare, I guess. It's not really the stuff I collect, but some people are really, probably the deepest pockets that collect comic books are into that Golden Age stuff that's really rare. So that's what really took off. So here we go. We've got the 7.0 AF-15 from Italy. Weird yellow background. Does not contain AF-15 inside. That one sold for $1,140. It's a 7.0. So that is actually down from previous sales at the last, I think, either last Comic Connect. I don't know. Comic Connect had quite a few auctions in the last year, but some of those were selling for, some of these AF-15s from Italy were selling at pretty crazy numbers. Not really numbers I think they should be selling at. They're not that rare. Even if they don't have the stickers, CGC won't even denote that. So it really technically should be incomplete. But it's still an awesome book, still a book that I think deserves attention. But maybe not $3,000 for a copy attention. You should still be able to find these on Italian eBay pretty, not as cheap as they used to be, but definitely, in the couple $100 range for a decent looking copy. $576 for a complete ASM1 Newton from Australia. This seems cheap to me because there was a time not long ago that Newton Raw copies were selling for $1,000. So $500 for a 5.5 graded copy at an auction. It seemed like it should have gone for a little bit more. Granted, the Newtons were blowing up when all of the comic, pretty much all genres of comics were blowing up, and they've definitely had a downturn since then. But still seems like 576 was still pretty cheap for ASM. 159, 5.5 copy of ASM 50. I think this one was from Danish, yeah. So this is the Danish edition. So there's a little bit of controversy on the foreign Facebook group. There always seems to be when it comes to sales. Morton, who lives in Denmark, was stating that you couldn't even buy this copy raw in Denmark for as cheap as this went, and just kind of stating that it seems like the market is down or just this auction underperformed. And I agree with him. It's $159 for a graded copy. That's just kind of crazy, and one that doesn't come up for sale a lot. And so we're kind of at this weird tipping point where now the foreign comics, that we have here in America, North America, Canadian collectors, all those guys in Singapore that collect, all around the world, the people that collect foreign comics from all these different countries, with the comic market kind of having a little bit of a correction, or a pretty huge correction in some spots. Some of these books are worth less now in these foreign collecting communities than they are in their actual homeland. So, eventually the prices in the homeland is going to have to adjust, because more than likely the native collectors aren't going to be willing to pay those old American prices. So it's kind of like a weird time in the market, and that makes it weird for people like me that used to source books and sell them on eBay to kind of fund my collection. It's really not even possible anymore because they're asking more for these comics than you can even sell it for in America. Whereas back in the day, you might have found this for $20 on some Danish website and been able to flip it on eBay for a couple $100. So those days have kind of come and gone. Kind of my bread and butter forever, I always said, was like selling Italian, German, Spanish, just the keys that you could get for $5, and selling them for $30. I would just sell books for $30 all day long, and it's a good way to make a lot of money. But now those sellers in all those countries are now asking $90 for that same comic. So they're asking $90 for a comic that now, maybe at one point went up to a couple $100 during the comic boom, but now you can't even sell it for $90 in America anymore. So it's kind of like a inverse market. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Could kind of hurt the market for a little bit, but we'll see. I think a lot of us that are kind of been doing this for a little bit and actually are interested in these books and enjoy having them in our collections. We're not too worried about it. Just ride out the storms. If I was paying my bills selling foreign comics, I might be a little more concerned. Things are going to get tighter, but who knows? I haven't really been selling much aside from a few things here and there, so I can't really speak on the selling side of it. So here we have first appearance of Dr. Octopus from Brazil, sold 5.5, sold for $384. Not a bad sale. This seems like kind of like a middle of the road sale, nothing crazy. Cool colors. These Brazilian books always have fun colors and tend to be pretty difficult to get in any decent sort of grade. So I think that was a fair price for that. 9.2. First appearance of Morbius from Germany. This is actually the second time this was printed in Germany, but still 9.2 is pretty crazy high, and it's not hard to get high grade German books. But anything over 9.0 in any country aside from, even U.S. books from this age, it's going to be pretty difficult. So I really thought this would have gone more than $149. So to me, that was really, really cheap. Morbius is pretty much played out. The movie did terrible. I only lasted maybe 15 minutes into that movie and I had to just give up. But, still, people that are diehard comic book fans, they like the character. So I'm really surprised this one went so cheap. Another one from Germany, even higher grade, ASM 50, Death of Gwen Stacy, huge, key comic, pivotal. This is, I believe, the first print of this comic in Germany, unlike that Morbius. So 139. That's really cheap. Yeah, you would probably find this on German eBay, raw for, they're probably asking $40-50 raw. So here we are with a 9.4 on the U.S. market for selling only for $139, and that's after the buyer's premium, which is I think 20 or 15%, something like that. So the actual final Bell auction price was even lower than that. Another one, 9.6. Let's see, 241. This is the second part of the Death of Gwen Stacy story. 122, Spider-Man. So this one commanded a little bit more money, $100, or about $100 more. Obviously the grade's higher, but to me this is the better cover. But still, for a 9.6, still seems pretty inexpensive. And surprisingly, so we got the first appearance of Craven from Italy. So this one's 8.5, which is high grade, regardless of any country you're from. But Italian stuff really not very rare. I'd say Italy and Germany are kind of on the same wavelength of rarity. So not really sure why this one got more than the other one, the German editions, but this is probably more in line where I think something like a high grade foreign that's not particularly rare should kind of be. $360, maybe up to even $400 or $500 if it's in really good condition. So yeah, not a terrible sale on this one, but nothing spectacular. So this one really surprised me. 9.0 ASM 300. I know this one I think sold for $200, so $240 with the buyer's premium. This these you can't get out of Italy raw anymore, even in not very good condition. You're just not getting them out of Italy for less than 100 euros, and then typically you're looking at $15 to $30 shipping on top of that. So right there you're already invested $150, $160 getting one out of Italy that could have restoration, that could have all kinds of issues that they really don't often check for in Italy, or the general market doesn't check for there. So here you would have had a really nice high grade 9.0 copy for $240 out the door. So that was really, to me, it seemed like a steal. These have sold for much more on eBay and other auction sites in the past, but obviously like all these books, the American market has basically crashed. So it's really, I guess, having an effect on the foreign market as well now. At one point, early on in the kind of market correction, I would have said, oh yeah, the foreign market, or the foreign comic market's holding up great. There's really been no adjustment at all, but it has worked definitely its way into the foreign market now. Things are going cheaper than they were. So this is the UK first appearance of Loki. 630 for a 7.5 seemed, I guess, fairly reasonable. Loki's had a good run in the movies, and of kind of all the terrible TV shows that Marvel's put out. That show has been like kind of a highlight. I feel like that and WandaVision. But yeah, so I think he's going to be a character that's going to stay popular and always have kind of a market. So 630, it doesn't seem, could have gone higher, I feel like, but this made me feel a little, I don't know, feel good or bad about it, because I bought a raw copy that ended up grading out to I think like a 5.0, I think, and that one cost me $400. So at the time, I think people told me, hey, I think you overpaid for that, but in the end, sometimes you just got to pay what you want for the book. So yeah, 630 for a graded 7.5. I would call that high grade for an old UK book. So yeah, maybe that should have gone a little higher. But it's a good looking book, and someone's probably happy to add that to their collection. Another Newton from Australia, Avengers 1. Crazy colored Newtons. This one's a complete copy with the poster. Sold for $660. Still seems a little cheap compared to what they were selling for a few years ago. But it is what it is. Newtons have gone down in price, so I guess $660. I guess that's about the going rate now for a graded 5.5. I would call that upper condition, not high grade, but definitely getting to the upper scale. And I don't know if I've seen many Newtons that go above 8.0 or if I've seen any. So yeah, probably, I guess, not a bad sale given the current market conditions. Not a great sale when you consider the history of the market, though. $900, 5.5, Batman 181. This was actually, seems like a pretty solid sale in my eyes. Batman kind of seems to be hitting some popularity now with the Penguin show. Everyone's talking about how great it is. So maybe they'll give a little boost to some of the Batman keys, Silver Age keys. So yeah, and anything out of Brazil, it's tough. 5.5, you're looking at kind of the upper mid range for Brazil books. With the 8.0 probably being very, very high grade for Brazil. So $900, not bad. I feel like we've seen higher numbers in the past, but I can't really recall any exact numbers. So we'll say, in my eyes, that's a pretty decent sale. All right, so this one I think went without the buyer's premium, it was like $170, which seemed really cheap for a 7.0 out of Italy. I know these little digest size Nembo kids maybe isn't for everybody. But still a good looking copy. These actually, I've got one for sale on eBay, and mine's 7.0 as well, but with white pages. And I'll be honest, these were not hard to find high grade. I've owned probably 4 or 5 of these over the years, and they were all 5.0 or better. I don't know if they were just kept in stacks or kept in storage. Well, I don't know, unsold copies. But yeah, for little Italian books, you can get some in surprisingly good condition. So $204 seemed very cheap to me. I wouldn't let mine go for that cheap, but maybe that's just where we're at right now in the market. All right, 1.8. What is it? Brave and the Bold 28, first appearance of the Justice League. Sold for $336. So I've seen, even in the Facebook group, the Foreign Comic Facebook group, not even probably a year ago, a raw copy in much worse condition than this sell for $500. So this seemed like a pretty low sale. But these just aren't really. They're not super old. I think they were more 1968, later Silver Age, when they printed this in Brazil. But still, it's not an easy book to find really in any condition. So I'm surprised this one didn't go higher, because I know we've seen these sell for much more in the past. Another really high grade Italian digest size book that did not produce very well at all. This was it Brave and the Bold. I can't remember off the top of my head. Brave and the Bold 54. This is the first appearance of the first appearance of the Teen Titans. Kind of a weird covers, weird Indian tornado guy. I don't know. That's not really my cup of tea, but still a key book, something that collectors go after. 8.5 is pretty high grade. For some reason, this one I haven't seen a lot of high grade copies, unlike the Batgirl book. This one, I've owned a couple copies and they're always been trashed. So 8.5 is crazy high grade. So for this to sell for, with the buyer's premium, $149. So that probably, you're looking at $120 probably, or $130 this sold for. That's just crazy cheap. I mean, most people selling this book on eBay or in the Foreign Comic group from Italy, they're going to be asking, $80 to $100 minimum raw. Who knows condition wise the issues that could have. So to have an 8.5 sell for that cheap is pretty crazy. 8.0 Conan. So this is, to me, was one of the most common keys out of Italy you can get. I've owned probably 30 different copies of this book. I used to sell them, like I said, buy them $5, sell them for $30. And this was one of those books I've sold dozens and dozens of copies. and this one sold for $216. So, you know, given that it's not that rare of a book, 8.0s, definitely a decent grade for it, white pages, but not not a rare book. Pretty easy to find. So, not a great sale, but not really too bad either. So someone that was looking for a Conan one from Italy, they got a good deal on a high grade book, but definitely not something that's too tough to find. So this was the first appearance of Doctor Doom from UK, Alan Class. Sold for $360, which is pretty inexpensive, even though this one is qualified. I think it has a page missing. Yeah, either page 1 or page 7 missing. But still pretty inexpensive. I thought this would have what did I do? I thought this would have gone a bit higher. Just I guess people don't like that green label. Didn't want to put too much money into it, but I thought this would have gone a bit higher than it did. So this is $336 for Daredevil 1 from Australia, Newton. I'm assuming the reason it got a green label is because it is missing its poster. Centerfold poster missing. Yep. So these Newtons, it's about a 50-50 chance it's going to have its poster. They obviously demand a premium if they do have their poster. But $336 really for it being incomplete is not a bad sale. I feel like this is one of the tougher ones, the Newton number ones to find. So I feel like if this would have been a complete copy, it probably should have commanded $600-700. So maybe that's kind of in line. 3.5 is kind of a lower grade. So not a terrible sale. This went low, I think. I feel like I've seen these sell for much higher, closer to $2,000. So I'm not really sure why this one sold so cheap. 4.5 white pages from Daredevil 1 from Mexico. And I feel like I've seen some sell fairly recently for much more money. So don't really know why this didn't sell good. Like I said, I feel like this auction had pretty low results aside from a couple books. It definitely, I think some of these auction results are kind of some of the lowest prices I've seen on some of these books, in the big auction house setting, regardless of whether it's last year or the year before. These are definitely some of the lowest prices we've seen. Not saying the sky is falling, not saying it's an issue. People that collect these things, they're gonna love them whether this book sells for $4,000 or $1,000. All I know, I got my copy for $75. I'm happy with that. This could go all the way back down to $200 in value, and I'll still be happy to own that book. So this is the Satanica non-canon Spider-Man, sold for $780, 5.0. So these have definitely sold much higher. I'll kind of show that in a little bit here. I got a couple comparisons to some old auctions that someone in the Facebook group put up. But yeah, $780, much lower than it sold for in the past. Beautiful cover. There's a Duran. He swiped almost all his covers, so this is one of the better looking ones, one of the more popular ones. I think this and the Wedding Issue obviously is the biggest one. Big Booty Gwen, those are kind of the big keys, and the Vampirella cover. So $264 for Fantastic Four 5 first Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom rocking the gold medal with the purple cloak. 5.0 obviously missing its poster because it's got a green label. So this one sold for $264. This was pretty surprising because I feel like these are really not easy to find for some reason. This issue in particular seems pretty tough. So I thought, I feel like a minimum for the big keys, even missing the poster, they've always kind of sold in around the $300 range in auction settings. So this one, with the buyer premium added on there, still pretty cheap. I got mine I got the whole, I think, Fantastic Four run from a guy, but he found them in his basement, or it's not even his basement. It was in a crawl space under his house in Australia. he just sold me the whole lot for like $100, but they were like trashed. So I think mine ended up being like a 3.5, I think, but it was complete, and I was happy to have it at the time. Haven't really had a shot at another one, but yeah, with me, I'm not really too worried about the grades. I'm just more worried about just finding a copy just to have in my collection. All right, 9.6 FF 52, pretty, pretty crazy high grade copy. When you could think that just a year or two ago, this raw would probably sell for, almost $200. So a 9.6 with white pages selling for only $660 seems pretty cheap. But I guess you got to remember, this isn't the first print in Germany. This is the second time this issue was printed. So we always got to take that in consideration for countries that posted or that printed multiple editions of the same comic. So this one is from the early 70s. The other one was from the late 60s. So that one's going to command the big bucks, although I think this is the better looking cover. So we've got Flash 123 from Mexico, Navarro, and this one is imported from like almost all these books. This one came from Spain. It's no secret that even the big Mexican collectors, they're not getting their books in Mexico. They're searching from other countries. They're looking for countries that sold those same Navarro comics and La Prensa comics, but the market hasn't caught up to kind of the foreign hype yet. And Spain's kind of one of those markets. You can go on Todo Collection, which has been pretty much gutted as of late. I haven't really seen many keys coming through there, but you can find some of these big keys, for under $100, even up till last year. I picked up a bunch of DC Navarro keys for $6-7 an issue. One guy just posted them all one morning. I just quickly added them to my cart, and those are books that you can easily flip for a couple $100. So this is one of those Mexican book that went to Spain. It was printed in Mexico, but went to Spain, had a stamp put on it. This one in particular is pretty tough to source. I don't have one in my collection. I'm not a big Flash fan. I do have the Italian version of this, which is pretty easy to find. So $4.80, that seemed pretty cheap, for a book that really doesn't come up very often. I think Rob got this copy because he said he'd been looking for one for like 10 years. So when he's looking for one, it's tough to find. So we've got a complete Hulk 1 from Australia, Newton again. $3.84. So here we are with a complete Hulk 1 cover, or has the Hulk 1 cover, complete, not missing the poster, has the poster, only sold for $3.80. So that's crazy cheap to me. This one is one of the harder ones to find, I feel like. Big key, does not have Hulk 1 story inside. So maybe that's the big determining factor. But yeah, this one went surprisingly low. I'm surprised it didn't go up to $600-700. Even on the kind of like the lower scale. But yeah, I guess he can't win all of them. All right, so the Colas. So this is the exact same copy that sold at Comic Connect, last Comic Connect auction, I believe, or within the last couple auctions. Sold for almost $4,000, I think. And that same person tried to flip it and sell it on Heritage and lost their ass. They lost a lot of money because this is with the buyer's premium added. So this only went for like $2,400, I think, at auction. So yeah, that wasn't a smart move. And it's hard to tell, but this book has holes punched through it. So for some people that could be a big turnoff. To me, it wouldn't really bother me. It's a 3.0, but it's still an amazing book. Great looking cover. Love, this and the Hebrew Hulk have kind of been battling for the top spot, in the foreign Hulk 1 set. And, after this sale, it kind of seems like the Hebrew Hulk's come out on top, even though it's, a much newer issue. It's just kind of, such a cool backstory, it being in reverse, and the Hebrew language on the cover. Yeah, I think that one kind of came out on top. But, I would still love to own one of these. I don't own any Norwegian big keys from the kind of like this time period. So one day I'd like to get one. I'll have to, maybe trade a bunch of books to get one. Or I'm not really spending a lot of cash on foreign comics right now, or any comics in general. I'm working more on trades lately, so we'll see what happens. All right, so now we're getting to some of the big sales of the night, whether the Golden Age, Batman and Superman books from Brazil. I believe this was the first cover appearance of Batman in Brazil, so it's restored, 2.0, low grade, but still, pretty significant book. Sold for 3,840. Yeah, I'm not sure if these were like locally drawn covers. I don't collect Golden Age comics, so it's really not in my wheelhouse. I'm not going to try and act like I'm an expert about it. But it's definitely a solid price for that book. Probably super rare. Probably gonna be really difficult to find one out of Brazil. But yeah, just a cool book in general. Another cool Golden Age cover. You got your Superman Hitler cover. This one was by far the biggest sale of the night. Sold for 10,200. That's with the buyer's premium. So yeah, definitely pretty much any foreign comic that's getting into the over, I'd say even over the $5,000 mark. It's definitely a pretty big benchmark sale. So this was a big one, and yeah, and who knew that some of these books would end up getting this much money? Because I feel like not a long time ago, but maybe 6 years ago, kind of seemed like the going rate for a lot of these Brazilian Golden Age books was like $300, maybe $500 for the bigger ones. So people that invested and bought into those, it's a smart investment. This one in particular, I'm not sure how much this sold for in the past, or but all I know is that $10,000, that's a huge sale. This is a Planet Comic 1 from Brazil, 1.8, so lower grade or low grade copy, but not at least it's not restored or conserved or anything like that. It's all for $1,200. Not, like I said, I don't really know much about what these sell for even on the American market, but it seems like a respectable sale for that kind of low grade. So kind of back to the Silver Age. This was the first Teen Titans again from Brazil. This one is actually conserved. This kind of throws me off that CBCS doesn't have a different color labeled for conserved. So yeah, that's 8.0, which is definitely very high grade. Sold for $500. So seems like a pretty solid sale. $500. For a high grade, conserved book. Kind of seems like it works out. Another big one, the O Lobino Batman. I think this one, it said, was like the first, I forget what it was, first appearance of Batman in the interior. I'd have to look at the labels. Like I said, I really don't know much about these Golden Age books, but definitely a big sale, 4,560. Big money. Someone was shelling out the dough to get some of these really rare Brazilian books in their collection. So this is the first printing outside of the U.S. of AF-15. This is the UK Out of This World. So inside, it has AF-15 on the inside. So kind of a big key, but if you didn't know much about foreign books, you wouldn't even realize it. So this was one I was like kind of keeping an eye on, thinking, hey, maybe it'll slip under the radar, and maybe none of these new collectors will know what this is, but obviously they did because it sold for $1,140. So yeah, definitely a great book. So one of those, not a key cover, but big key guts on the inside, which is not really what I collect, but still, for something like the first AF-15, it's something that I would want in my collection at some point. All right, and here's the kind of the other big surprises of the night were the Indonesian Star Wars books. This one's a 5.0 white pages, which is definitely considered high grade by Indonesian standards. and this one went for $2,640. This one's issue 1. I believe it's a 3 comic series. I have the whole set. My issue 1, this whole the whole top right corner is chewed off by a rat. So I don't know though. Even with that rat chew, it might be worth grading because no part of the actual comics on the inside are missing. It's just like that white corner, so it's kind of the border area. So could be worth me just for safekeeping, putting it in a slab. And not that I'm planning on selling it, but I'm very pleased looking at this price because I know I got my rat chewed copy for $100, and I'm happy with that. I love these Indo books. I love the redrawn covers. They're just fun books. Especially dealing with sellers out of Indonesia. There's on Facebook and Instagram so many scammers out of Indonesia. I've lost money. I know some other people have definitely lost money. So you got to be careful with Indonesian sellers. You gotta definitely buy from someone that has like a good reputation in the group, in the foreign comic community. Here's another one. This matches up to kind of our Star Wars 1 cover, but redrawn for the Indonesian market, and it's their issue 2, and this one sold for $1,680, which kind of surprised me because normally this is like the big seller. This is the issue that goes for a lot of money, more so than this one, but yeah, and this is issue 1, I guess. That's why I commanded the premium. But even 4.0 white pages, that's pretty high grade. I've got a pretty nice copy. Definitely it's more than a 4.0. I'm just kind of afraid to send it to CGC. After I guess there's been kind of it was kind of discovered that there's some facsimile, like bootleg copies that look old and they look weathered that are circulating in the market. So after that, I just kind of got nervous. I was like, I don't know if I even want to send these to CGC. I would hate to like get it back and find out that it's just a bootleg. But it smells old, looks old. I don't know why all of mine smell like gasoline. I don't know if that's because it was stored in a garage or I don't know what, but who knows. So yeah, great sale. Cool, and these Indo books are really cool. So I was happy to see these sell. I was surprised they didn't have an issue 3. If they had these 2, I'm surprised they didn't sell the issue 3. But that one's kind of maybe the worst looking of the 3. So I don't know. Pretty strong price on this 3.0 Superman First Legion of Superheroes, $600. I think I sold one and definitely in higher grade than this for, I think it was about $400 a few months ago, maybe a year ago. But just like the other Navarro book I was showing you guys, this one came out of the Mexican edition, out of Spain, and you can tell by that stamp on the cover. So this one was probably somebody picked this up cheap in Spain. I know I picked mine up for, I think it was about $70, and was able to sell it for about $400 after I graded it and everything. I'm not a huge Superman fan, so for me, these were kind of more just like investment books, to kind of see what happens and then eventually sell. So yeah, $600, definitely seemed like a pretty strong sale for this book. And this is, classic Superman is like his origin story, Superman 53. This one's from where? Sweden? Yeah, Sweden. $780. So actually that kind of seemed a little low to me. I think this is a pretty huge key for a lot of people. So I thought this one would have gone a little bit higher. Especially it being, as old as it is, but definitely a nice looking copy, 5.5. I'm not really sure the rarity or how tough these books are to find, but just a classic book, classic cover. So this one, 9.0 German, Tales of Suspense, $1,000 seems pretty solid. I think for a 9.0 high grade copy of one of the bigger Marvel keys, it seems like a pretty good price, pretty fair for the buyer, pretty fair for the seller. 528, I know this is a pretty hard book out of Mexico to find. First appearance of Groot, $528. I thought this would maybe gone a little higher, but it's low grade, so I guess you can't expect too much from a book that's a 1.8. All right, so that kind of brings us. So I was telling you guys about a Facebook post. So a guy Morton out of Denmark, he was kind of doing a comparison of past sales and current sales. So here you see the past sale for this Batman issue was over $1,000, and then at this most recent auction sold for $500. Here's the. Let me pause this because it's going too fast. So this is the one that just sold 5.0, and let me go back. And so the previous sale for a lower grade copy was $19.50, I think it said. So yeah, $19.50 for 4.5. Actually, and this one is a 5.0, and this one just sold for $7.80. So pretty big difference there. Here you see some of those Italian A15s, $3,600, $1,000 for a low grade copy, and here you got this one selling for $1,000. I do believe those other ones sold too high though. Here's the Colas, sold for $4,200, and here's the exact same book that just sold for $2,640. We're talking a pretty massive drop in value in a pretty short amount of time. That was Morton. He kind of made that post. It kind of started a lively discussion in the group, as things always go in that group. But it's just when you got people who've got sell these books for a living versus people who sell these books just for fun or just collect these books for fun. There's always gonna be a difference opinion, and to me it's kind of like I just go with a gut feeling, and my gut feeling was that this auction went significantly cheaper than past auctions, regardless of the season, regardless any of that. The book prices, they were much lower than what they've been selling for at Comic Connect. And that was just kind of my question, was like, why, these guys that sell, Sky and Josh, these guys that sell a lot of these books at these auctions, they had a pretty bad experience, I feel like, at Heritage the first go around, a couple years ago. They didn't do anything to promote the books. They didn't really seem to like the guy that was consigning the books that worked for Heritage, or they just didn't think he did enough. So I didn't really hear anything good about selling at Heritage, because at one point I was like, oh, maybe I'll sell some books at auction. So then I was definitely like, I'm definitely not going to sell at Heritage, because these guys didn't seem to like the experience, didn't like it, didn't really get good results, or nothing spectacular. And then they went to Comic Connect, and it's been pretty much gangbusters every auction at Comic Connect, like making record numbers, it feels like, on every book, huge sales. That was pretty much my main question, was what brought them back to Comic Connect, or back to Heritage after having such a good recent history at Comic Connect. And I guess the guy that worked at Comic Connect went to Heritage to kind of host this foreign sale, so they kind of followed him back to Heritage. But doesn't, in my opinion, if those were my books, aside from those big Indonesian sales and those big Golden Age Brazilian sales, I wouldn't have been too impressed with the numbers that they brought in. But not saying the sky's fallen, not saying that this is the death of foreign comics or anything. It's just to me it just seemed like that auction underperformed. Not a big deal, but we'll see. We'll see what the springtime brings. I'm not sure when the next Comic Connect auction is, but we'll kind of see. We'll have to keep an eye on that, because that would be really the telling thing, is whether or not, is it the auction house or is it the comic book market? Like what is the difference here? Or is it just that there just aren't that many people to sustain a constant foreign comic auctions? Like, are there that many collectors that they're going to be constantly selling these books and constantly having demand? And or is it just a few guys that just were looking for these books, and as they find them, the prices are going to go down? So we'll see. But like I said, just kind of a interesting auction result, so I wanted to make a quick market report on that. That really wasn't very quick, but all right. Hopefully I'll be able to try and make videos here and there, but It was good. Good talking about the market. It's always fun to watch. As somebody that used to sell quite a bit and is considers myself a pretty avid foreign comic collector. The results of these auctions do matter to me. It's not above my head. I want to know why books are selling high, why books are selling low, because it directly affects me and my collection. And I've got tens and tens of thousands of dollars invested in this collection. So just like you are watching your retirement fund or you're watching your stock market portfolio, it's just kind of just how it works with collectibles. So it's always just interesting to watch. So that's really all I got. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.